We have with us on bellicon on our lovely YouTube channel a very, very, very special guest today, Olympic gold medalist. I am going to let you give a short bio and introduce yourself and where you are from and your full name and where you live, and then we will get started.
Okay, great, Faith. Well, many thanks. I'm really happy to be here with you. And my name is Teresa Zabell. I'm Spanish, although I was born in England, in the UK, from British parents. But we came to live in Spain when I was just 1 year old, so I consider myself Spanish. And when I was 11 years old, I had a dream, and that dream was to go to the Olympic Games. And I managed to go twice, to Barcelona in 92 and Atlanta in 96, and won the gold medal on both occasions. So I consider myself a really privileged person. And since I gave up Olympic sailing, which was over 25 years ago, I started a foundation. And our motto is take care of the only two places that you're never going to be able to move away from: your body and your planet. So we combine sport with the care of the environment, and especially the care of the oceans, which is obviously where I spent 20 years making my dreams come true.
Amazing. I got so excited speaking with you. Your story inspired me for probably a whole week. I was telling everybody about it. So how did you come across sailing? Like, how were you inspired? What was your first sort of memory of sailing, and how did it find you, and how did you find it?
Well, I was brought up in a small village on the southern coast of Spain, just outside Malaga. It's called the Costa del Sol. Many people have been there for tourism. And so, yeah, we were sort of practically on the beach, just about every day. And my parents used to take us to this club that was basically on the beach. You just walk down to the sand, and there was a big swimming pool there, and we used to swim in the sea. And I was always fascinated by these boats that would go out sailing, and, the wind was pushing them along. So I always sort of stood by the shore watching them and hoping that one day they would say, oh, you want to come out with us and sail a bit and try it. It didn't get to happen. But then after a few years, they started a sailing club in my village. And that's when I started I tried the sport. I was 10 and I was a bit afraid at the beginning because, if you're not really big, and I wasn't, I was a tiny girl when I was 10 years old. I grew up later on. And the boat was sort of, tossing me around with the wind.
Yeah.
And I even got a bit frightened. But then I went back a couple of years later when I had grown a bit more and I was stronger and the weather was better. And that's when I really fell in love with it. And I've been doing that ever since.
I love that. And how old were you? So you started sailing around age 10. How old were you when you made that decision of, I want to go so far that I'm getting to the Olympics? Like, how did you get into that mindset of training?
Well, that happened one afternoon, in a really precise moment. I was in England because my parents sent my elder brother and me to some friend's house to spend a couple of weeks there and to be able to improve our language and get to know a bit of the British culture because, they were British and we had been born there. Sure. And in these friend's house, the dad of the family, he was always out on the lawn playing games with us, and we were running around and with a ball and all these kind of things. And I loved sport. It was just my passion. And one day he didn't come out anymore. And so I thought, what's happening today? We're missing him. And although I was extremely timid, I went inside the house and I looked for him. And he was sitting on a sofa watching, one of these 1976 box TVs that were practically black and white. And so I said, what are you doing here? It's sunny outside and it's nice. And he said, well, the Olympic Games have started. And I said, what's that? And so he said, you love sport and you don't know what the Olympic Games are. Come here. And he sat me next to him. And he ran me through the whole process of the athletes coming out, with their uniforms on. And we were watching athletics. And so they got ready for the start and they ran or they jumped or whatever they had to do. And some won, others lost. Some were, absolutely out of their bodies in joy. And the other ones were sort of devastated. And this whole thing just really caught me. And that afternoon, I decided that I knew what I wanted to do. And I wanted not to be watching the TV. I wanted to be inside the TV.
In it.
Yeah.
I love that.
I want to be part of this.
Very few people, I feel like, have that moment at that young age and then it comes true. I remember that too, watching the Olympics. I was a swimmer. And you do have that moment, but to actually be able to have that dream and then see it into fruition is just, It's really special. So when you
Yeah,
were
it
kind of
is.
going along this journey, did you, face any challenges? Like, were there women in sailing at that time, or how was it for
Mhm.
women in the Olympics at that era?
Well, no, in 1976, there was no women sailing in the Olympic Games.
Wow.
In 1980, there was no women sailing. In 1984, there was no women sailing. The first event for women sailing got included in 1988. So, I mean, many years went past since I had my dream. But I started sailing and I started competing and I started going out to sea, thinking that I had to train because I had to be good because one day I would go to the Olympic Games. And, even now when I look back, I think, how did I manage to keep that dream alive when it was an impossible dream? But I
Yeah.
did. Yeah. And I always
And
say
you
that,
had no role models necessarily to look
no,
at. You were
no,
paving a path that didn't exist.
exactly. The role models come behind me, not in front of me, which
Yes.
is, a great privilege for me, obviously. But I always say that a dream is not anything else than something that you wish would come true in the future. It's just a wish. Mm? But then when you get a dream and you put a date on it, you convert it into a goal. Mm?
I
And
love
then you
that.
have to get your goal and you have to make a plan. And that's how you make your dreams come true. So if you just have a dream and you leave it there, it's never going to come true. You need to say, right, I'm going to do this, and this is the date, the date that I want it to happen. Obviously, for an Olympic Games, the date is fixed because you can't
It's
move it.
fixed. You have
Mm?
no
Yeah.
choice.
If it's that you're starting your own business, well, then, okay, it doesn't matter if it's a month before, later, or whatever.
Sure.
But that's, I do a lot of conferences and motivational speeches and so on. And I always speak about this because when you tell people that you had a dream, and obviously they know the end result, so it just seems like, okay, you had a dream and you made it come true.
Sure.
That, simple, but it's not simple. I went through many years of preparing myself to go to the Olympic Games. And then when I did get the possibility to go to my first Olympic Games in Seoul 1988, I won the trials to go and I wasn't selected. So I didn't get there. And that was a huge setback. It's the biggest setback I had in my sporting career. But it made me stronger.
It makes
When
you
you look
sure.
back, everything happens for a reason. And then that
Yeah.
strength that I gained and that sort of determination and willpower and everything made the possibility to win 2 gold medals in a row, which is, something that nobody had done. So yeah, that was quite something.
That's amazing. So everyone's probably wondering, so how does one go from sailboat to trampoline? So we'll make
Yeah.
that fun segue. So how did you come across rebounding and decide, since you're so in your body and movement is such a big part of your life? So I assume it has something to do with that. But how did you come across rebounding and decide to kind of start incorporating it into your training? And what stage of your career were you at?
Well, I started when I remember when I had kids. You'd go along the promenade in the summer, and they had like these. It wasn't exactly a rebounder, but it's like a trampoline,
Yeah.
and I would go and jump on there with them. And I was like a little girl, and I really loved it. But I didn't have the possibility to have one at home. Then about 8 years ago, I started going to a gym because I moved house, a gym close to here, and they had rebounders. And so I used to put my name down for the classes of rebounding every week. And then, unfortunately, when COVID came along, they changed all the classes, and rebounding. I don't know why it was eliminated from the schedule. So I stopped jumping. And then about a few months ago, it was my daughter. My daughter sent me this typical short video through Instagram of a lady speaking about jumping and saying how healthy it was, and you're defying gravity and you're opening your lymphatic system. And I looked at it and I thought, God, I love doing this. Why aren't I doing it? And
Yes.
so I thought, well, it's not in the gym. I need to buy a rebounder to have at home. And that's when I started investigating to see what was available on the market. And when you've been a professional athlete and your equipment is something that you treasure so much and you value so much, I don't like buying sort of just any equipment. For me, it has to be really top quality. And that's when I came across Bellicon. And then I got in touch with Bellicon to say, look, I really want to get hold of a rebounder. How can we make this happen? And so on. And I have my rebounder at home and I've been jumping this morning. So yeah, it's really, really
Amazing.
great. I really enjoy it.
I love that. Do you first of all, I have to segue. I love your daughter's name. Your story with your daughter's name makes me so happy.
Mhm.
I don't know if you're willing to share that, but it brings me so much joy.
Yeah, well, my daughter's called Olympia. She's
I love
27
it.
already, so she's not she's not a baby anymore, although she's still my baby. And
I love
yeah,
that. And she
the
kind of
reason is pretty obvious,
inspired
but
this
yeah.
shift, which makes me so happy. It's
Hmm.
so aligned with your story. What would you recommend, like for athletes training for the Olympics right now? Like, what would you recommend? How would you recommend that they could use rebounding and any training methods just in their training to build, especially for sailing, but even for any sport? What advice would you give them in terms of incorporating it into their life?
Well, lots of times, if you're a sailor or any other professional or elite athlete, you sort of get given these sequences to go through, yeah, of different sports. You go running and you cycle and you swim, and I don't think that many people have the rebounders sort of at the front of their mind. But
Yes, you're
a
right.
rebounder, it gives you many possibilities because you can get really strong legs doing rebounding, jumping. But then also sometimes I just, I have it with foldable feet. So I just get it out, put it on in front of my bed, and I just do a bit of sort of gentle bouncing at night before going to bed. And it really relaxes me. The typical day that you've got sort of stiff shoulders and back and so on, or you feel that your legs are a bit clogged up from sitting down all day and so on. And I just sort of do some, gentle jumping up and down, and I really like it. So I think that what the important thing is for people to realize that a rebounder, it's not just for kids and it's not just for really old people, it's for everybody, including elite athletes, including myself, and including everybody else. And there's so many ways of using it. And something that has really been an eye opener for me is accessing the platform that
Sure.
Bellicon has with all the classes, because I
Yes.
never imagined there was such a wide range, and it's
It,
really incredible that there's
Thank you for sharing that. It's true.
yeah,
People think, oh, it's just bouncing, which is wonderful if that's all you do is bounce. That's also great. But yeah, there's so much you can do for cross training. It's quite amazing
that's right.
on the online workout platform. So
Yeah.
that's so
And there's so,
fun.
and
I'm
there's
glad
so
you
many
enjoy
ways of
it.
bouncing. And there's so many ways of bouncing. You want to strengthen your legs, you want to gain balance, you want to relax. And yeah, I think it's really good and it's really entertaining, because sometimes when you're getting fit for a reason that's not just getting fit, you're preparing Olympic Games or you want to be an elite athlete or whatever. Sometimes, when they just sort of say to you, okay, now get in the pool and swim 20 minutes, and you're sort of watching the clock tick backwards to
Yes.
because it gets boring. And whereas you start doing this first, it's another variety of getting fit, and then also there's many ways of jumping. It's not just jump up and down. There's leg up, leg down, and crossing legs and so on. So yeah, it gets really really entertaining. And there's lots of days that I go to the gym often early in the morning, but there are other days that maybe I don't have time to go to the gym, and a 15-minute jump in the morning, it really sort of activates you, and you go
Yes.
out to work, feeling that you've done a sort of workout in the day.
Exactly. Yeah, it sets the tone for your day. Okay, so I have one more question, and this is a bit of a surprise question I didn't send you, and we haven't
Mhm.
talked about. But um, since you do now more motivational speaking, you've won an Olympic gold medal, which I feel like is it's like, how does anything get any better than that? You have a
Mhm.
family, you have a foundation, that's good for the planet and for movement and for the water. What is your next big goal? What do you dream to do next?
Well, I have my foundation, but that's it's a non-profit, and obviously that's a philanthropistic movement that I do. It's not. I don't gain a living from the foundation, so
Sure.
I do lots of advisory counseling in businesses and so on. And my next step is inside the foundation. It's replanting grass in the Mediterranean Sea, and that's something that we've already started. And we're going to be acting on 35,000 square meters this year. So that's really going to start making a difference, repairing the sea. Up until now, we've been trying not to damage, and we've got to a point where we need to repair. And from a professional perspective, my next goal, and which is what I'm getting prepared for now and working towards, is getting on boards. Because when you go on the boards of the different companies, you can really inspire them and act so that all the environmental side is taken care of, all the social side is taken care of, and the good governance. And for me, these are three basic pillars of business at the moment. And these are three pillars that I really want to work on, because boards traditionally have been very economically minded and very sort of
Yes.
legal minded. And now we're in, 2025, and things have changed over the last years. So I really want to get hold of all my experience and make it beneficial for the companies.
Make a difference. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you so much. I am inspired every time I hear you speak. I hope we get to hear you speak more and tell your
Sure.
story. And I can't thank you enough for sharing this with bellicon and sharing all that you do for the world, for the environment, and also for women in sports. I think that's so important to mention. And I'm just so grateful to have you. So thank you. I love this. This was my favorite today.
Thank you, Faith, for following up on me so that we made this possible, and really looking forward to the next one. Maybe in a few weeks we can do part 2, so that would be great, and I'll share my new experiences on the bellicon.
I love that. That sounds like a plan. It's a date. We set it.
Exactly.